Hail, weary podcast traveler and well met. I see your adventure through the depths of the internet has led you here to sliding into the DMs. Now, this is not a podcast for the dirty boys, as the name implies, but rather a D&D advice and creative concepts podcast where these three nerds take your questions, suggestions, and pop culture influences to turn them into playable content, making goofs all along the way. This show is for everyone, from level 1 adventurers just stepping into the realm of D&D to the level 19 Dragon Slayer. Their aim is to help both players and DMs alike. Even Gary Gygax needed help sometimes. Just ask Dave Arneson. So step into our tavern, take off your cloak of Elvenkind, and spend some time sliding into the DMs.
Hey, it's Oscar Fosder, and I'm a Dragonborn wizard, and I'm like the cook of this town and stuff, but I was told that these boyos need to do this thing, and if I put like a number on it, it'd probably be like pretty good if you like went and roll for like initiative or something, or okay, bye.
10.
19.
4.
Ooh.
That means I will start the episode. Hello, welcome to Sliding into the DMs. My name is Trevor. I am the continuity conductor of this show.
I rolled a 10, so that means me next. I am Bruce, the mad scientist.
And tonight we do have a guest. You heard her. She rolled 4.
Hi, I'm Kayla, Trevor's wife.
You might recognize Kayla from episode 14 of our podcast. We're now into episode 15. Episode 14 was a real play podcast where we had one of our friends, Cameron, also known as Bored as Noodles on TikTok, and we did his first ever D&D game with him in a one-shot, and my wife also played in that game. That was her second ever game, and those of you that have been looking through or listening to our podcast and saw that our episodes go from episode 12 to episode 14, and you're like, hey, what happened to cool unlucky number 13?
That's not how numbers work. Yeah.
There was a episode 13. It was a Facebook Live episode that we did, of course, live on Facebook. So if you want to check out that episode, head over to our Facebook page at SITDMS1. Check us out there, and it's in the videos there. And you can see in that video myself and Bruce and his amazing mom guest starred with us that night. So we had a really fun episode. We had people that got on and were commenting questions as we were recording them, and we were trying to answer some of them live and, acknowledge their comments and stuff about what our thoughts on different subjects were, and we had a really fun time doing it. So if you want to check that out, head to Facebook and go to SitDMs1, search that, and should come up with our Sliding into the DMs Facebook page.
All right, enough talking. Let's get back to talking.
Yeah.
So, Kayla, thank you so much for being our guest tonight. I think starting off would be interesting and helpful if you kind of described your experiences playing and like kind of how you felt, and if there's anything you would do different now that you've played a couple times, and what you liked and disliked or understood or didn't understand, just something along those lines. What do you think?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here, guys. So I have now played twice. The first time I played with a bigger group. It's a group that has kind of played together for a while. I think there were 6 players playing. And it was a fun time. I really liked the role play of D&D. I like getting into the characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not really understanding the whole, you roll this dice and then you pick this one and you gotta shoot or throw something at somebody. The technical part is a little harder, but the character part in the roleplay is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I can say, since I DM'd that game, you did wonderfully. That was so fun. There's a lot of instances where I should have had you roll certain things, but you were doing so well with the role playing. You were so into it. I was just like, I'm gonna let it go. Let's do this.
Yeah, thank you. I really definitely got into the character, and that character was funny because I didn't really care about what the character was, because I guess it was a rogue, And I didn't care that the character, like a rogue, was supposed to be like sneaky and steal stuff. I liked my background character that I created, and I kind of really stuck with that for the role. So again, like the technical part, I'm like, meh, whatever, but the character part I like.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I like...
The mechanics aren't really for you.
Yeah, exactly, the mechanics. But I think I liked the second game I played better, which was with you and Trevor and Cameron, or Bored as Noodles on TikTok, because Cameron and I didn't know how to play. So we had like one experienced player, which was Trevor, who helped us through like, okay, well now we need to do like a perception check, and okay, this is what we should do going forward. But it wasn't a bunch of people with their own ideals and like their own plan. Because sometimes I think as a new player, if you're coming into a big group that has all played and played with each other, they all have their own ideas of how they want the story to go. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to like get your own character in and really get to play like for yourself, because you just have to follow them along.
Yeah, you're kind of just breaking in. You're trying to figure out the game mechanics. And so you're not thinking so much about strategy and how to push the game forward this way to meet how you want this strategy to go. You're trying to focus just solely on the mechanics of the game and how to play, and the role playing of your character and stuff. And then you have those other experienced players who are at that level where they're not having to think about the mechanics anymore. They know the mechanics and they know what their character can do and how to do it. So they try to move on faster with the strategic part, and that kind of leaves the inexperienced player kind of behind in the dust. Where that person is just kind of lost and confused and like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do this because that's what they're going for, and they don't get to get their own game plan together. Whereas if you have, another inexperienced player with you and you're kind of both learning together, and then maybe one, like she was saying, one experienced player that can, or even just the DM that can help you with the mechanics of the game, but is patient with you and understanding and helping you just get the mechanics down first, and also letting you push the story forward how you want, or giving you advice on how they think is a good way or a good strategy to push the story forward, but letting you play the game more than kind of being drug through the game when you have a bunch of experienced players trying to just go ham.
Yeah, and I think you also run into a lot of the times where when you have more experienced players, like Kayla had said, when you have a larger group of experienced players who especially have played together, they all have their own opinions, and it almost becomes a scenario where it's like too many cooks in the kitchen, because you can ask a question and then you get 13 different answers because each person is trying to answer you or trying to get you to do something that'll benefit them or however it goes. But I do like the simplicity of, starting a fresh group with fresh people and just having like kind of either the DM or one veteran player alongside to kind of help coach them along and help them understand mechanics and stuff.
D&D is such a open game that when you have that many people and that many opinions, there's so many ways to attack a different scenario that they all have their own opinion on how to do it. So then, the person's asking, okay, how should I go about this? And it all depends on their mindset, their opinion on it, and also what their background is. Maybe they've mostly played with sorcerers, so they're going to start suggesting different magical tricks that you can use in order to get through the scenario. Or a guy that's played a rogue, and he's like, oh, just sneak past the guard, and then, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. The barbarian, that's going to say, just kill him. Smash through. Smash and grab, bud. Smash and grab. Or there's all kinds of different people that have different experiences in the game, and you put all of those together into one, and as just a party going through, that makes a really fun time. But when you have an inexperienced player that's thrown into that, and then they're trying to ask a question about what they should do, because they haven't formulated their own way of going about things yet, and now they're going to get 6 different answers from different people with different opinions based on their different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it just makes it more confusing for that new player.
Yeah. So, Kayla, when you played the second time, you said you enjoyed it a little bit more. What was something of that game that you remember, like, looking back on it now, that was probably, like, your favorite part of that game?
So definitely my favorite part. Okay, so my character in that game, for anybody who's heard that episode, what was it, 14?
Episode 14, yep.
Okay, episode 14.
Yeah.
If you've heard it already, I don't know if it's out.
It is.
Okay, so if you've heard it, I was this character. I was a dwarf, and it was like, I was female dwarf, and I was supposed to be like really tough, strong, but my name was Tiffany, and all this stuff. And at one point in the game, she decides to get up on like the bar with the barmaid, and they're singing and dancing and just causing a ruckus. And like, that was just really funny, I think. And again, it really had nothing to do with the game or the storyline, but I thought it was really funny to throw in there.
No, I loved it. I actually, when I was editing the podcast, I went and found the Bardcore, which, if you don't know what that is, that's like popular music or modern music remixed and played with like medieval times instruments. So that's like lutes and pan flutes and leather skin drums and stuff like that. It was the Bardcore version of Journey's Don't Stop Believin'. And I cut in that music right behind you singing, and it's probably one of my favorite parts of the podcast itself as well, other than some of the music and effects and stuff. But man, it was beautiful, and especially when we coaxed you into actually singing it as Tiffany, like, that just tickled me. I loved it.
See, again, that's what I'm saying. Like, I really love getting into the characters and like doing the like play, like when you get to like act out whatever that move is that you want to do. And it's just trying to learn more of that technical of, okay, now I get to this situation. What am I going to do? Go forward, attack, look at, anything.
And my advice on that is that comes kind of with time, especially, and time with that character even more. So it's kind of hard a lot of times to get into the mechanics just in a one-shot game, and the mechanics of that character. And even an experienced player a lot of times will, in a one-shot, you are still kind of trying to figure out your moves and what you can do with that character throughout that whole one-shot.
Yeah.
Really figuring out what the character can do and what you can do as a player. Kind of comes with being with a character for several games and really getting to know that character. That's where the mechanics really start to come together, because as you start to get into a groove with that character and you're like, okay, I know in this situation I can do this, and you don't have to sit there and stare at your character sheet for 5 minutes trying to figure out, what you can do, what his abilities are, things like that. You kind of know what they are, and then as the situation occurs, you're not, scrambling to find something, because you know in your head what those abilities are, and then you just, as the situation comes, I know I have this and I can do this. And to do that, I'm going to have to, roll this dice with this and do this. So it kind of it's a little harder to do in a one-shot setting as far as getting the mechanics down. I think one-shots are a great place to start, because then you do learn the role-playing a little bit. You kind of get the basics of what the mechanics are before you dive deep into them. And you also see if this is actually a game that you would like to play before you are committing yourself to a full-on campaign. But I think where it really gets good and where you start to really learn the mechanics and apply them well happens in a campaign where you're using the same character for multiple sessions.
Yeah, we also started you at a higher level too in that game. So, it's kind of intimidating to see all of the different things you can do, and not knowing what a lot of it means. So another thing that happens with, starting in a campaign, you are starting basically from level 1 a lot of the times, if not level 2, and then you can kind of see those new actions and, things you can do in combat or abilities or whatever. You can see those things develop as you level up, and these things are introduced slowly, and then that way you can get to use them little by little, and then you're all set. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, since you've played a couple times, and if you plan on playing again, is there anything that interests you, like character build wise or like game wise, that you'd like to try out or do?
If I was to do like another one shot, because like both one shots were very different setting wise, I guess is the best way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, maybe something really cool would be, Trevor and I actually live in North Pole, so definitely like winter, because I've never been in a winter scene. I've done like forest and desert. Mm-hmm. And so like winter, maybe Santa Claus. Santa Claus is the big bad, maybe. Ooh, ah.
Ooh,
yeah,
I do like
and his
that.
reindeer, are like maybe doing up to some mischief, or the elves are doing something. Also like maybe like a
this.
Barbie Malibu dream house, like where everybody's like plastic.
Ooh, maybe like a tiny haunted house or a tiny escape room kind of build.
Yeah, those would be cool. Yeah.
I do know you like puzzles, so I think maybe an escape room thing or a puzzle-heavy game might be interesting for you, because those mechanics are a little bit simpler to understand, because it's you interacting with, a specific object that doesn't have to deal with damage for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be fun for you, especially to get to learn those subtle things that you can do in combat. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or combine them. It's a haunted dollhouse, and Santa's still the bad guy.
Yeah.
Do you really like that Christmas idea? I think you can take it and twist it and make it really fun. Like a backstory of Santa kind of going bad and sick of all these unappreciative kids getting these toys that they don't care about and they just break, or the parents stealing
goddamn millennials,
right? Or the parents stealing all the credit for his hard work, and he puts in all this work and all this stuff, and he kind of goes crazy and goes bad, and he wants to like destroy all the toys in the world and take all the fun away. Then maybe the PCs could be like a group of elves that are like an elite elf force from Santa's workshop that have seen like his transformation and seen how he's turned bad, and trying to defeat him to save Christmas and keep the elves working on toys and keep their livelihoods up. I think that could be a really fun campaign to run.
Or one of my favorite things to do is, I always like to hide one person in the party who is secretly a bad guy or flips and becomes a bad guy. What if you did this from the opposite side? So instead of Santa being evil outright, you are actually like dark elves who are helping the Krampus try and stop Santa from spreading Christmas joy. So you're actually playing a villain campaign or a villain one-shot where you're trying to set traps or you're trying to capture Santa, or, and then you have the DM playing Santa and maybe a couple elves who are trying to thwart you the whole time. That may be fun to do as well. I had an idea for one-shot kind of side game, not specifically on the D&D game system, but I did think that it could still apply. But so the one-shot idea I had, which I'm sure you guys will be interested to know, is you and your party are all mascots, like full-on costume NFL team mascots, and there's some big like national who's the best mascot event going on, and you and your mascot buddies are basically training or gonna go, and whatever it is, you guys are gonna be there. Well, then at some point in your training or in your preparation to go to the event, the CIA comes up or the FBI comes up and contracts you to work with them because there's been some kind of threat that a terrorist or whatever is going to blow up the event and try and kill as many people as possible, because for some reason this mascot event is like hugely popular. And so the goal of the game is they give you some basic information and soup up your suits a little bit to give you different benefits and abilities and stuff like that. And you have to take those abilities and information and devise a plan to find either where the bomb is or who set the bomb, or try and get people to evacuate or whatever it is. You and your party have to decide that and then execute it. And it just sounded like so much fun to me. And I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in playing later on, but it's something I'm definitely interested in.
Bruce, I think that's why you're a good DM, because you just come up with these, like, crazy situations, and you're just so full of, like, so many different ideas.
I listen to a lot of podcasts that don't specifically do content on D&D, but it's content that I can, flip and warp and twist, or that gives me inspiration on doing stuff, which this would be a good DM tip, I guess. I mean, this is basically what this podcast is about, is giving you tips and stuff. But listen to content you enjoy that sparks creativity in you. So I listen to a couple different podcasts. I listen to Dimension 20, which is amazing. It's a actual play podcast, hosted by and DM'd by Brendan Lee Mulligan. And then I also listen to, The Adventure Zone, which this season is Graduation, and it is hosted and DM'd by the Middleist brother, Travis McElroy. I listen to a new show on the Maximum Fun Network. Well, not new show, but one of the newer shows on the Maximum Fun Network called Story Break. And it's 3 professional scriptwriters who try and break a story in 1 hour. So they pick a topic, or a topic is suggested to them, and they take that and, break it down to something that will make a good movie or TV show. And then they basically write a script for it and then pitch it to you. And you listen to the process of them breaking down this idea or this story and then developing it into an actual conceivable thing. And that's where I kind of got the idea for the mascot thing, was they were going over something about creating a game for an alternate system, and they were bouncing across a couple different ideas, and I picked up on a couple points, and I was like, well, why aren't they talking about this? This would be so fun. And then I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. So, but I really enjoy stuff like that, and that's, audiobooks are good for that stuff, and, history podcasts or sci-fi podcasts or whatever you think, Yeah, so I just really love those things, but I have plenty more ideas to come whenever it comes time for it, but...
Hey, Bruce, I have an idea that I thought was really cool.
Okay.
And I want you to think about and explore, and also get a new player, Kayla's idea on.
Okay.
This was an idea that was sent to us, and I feel really bad because I screenshotted it so that I would have it when it came time for this. And when I screenshotted it, there's a symbol over the person's name.
Oh no!
So I can't give them credit.
God damn it, Trevor!
I was trying to go back in messages and try to find it, but it is so old at this point that it is lost. So I'm gonna try to find this person's name. I will find it.
Okay.
They said, okay, this works best if playing in a world with options to go to other plane of existences. Players are playing their characters.
Okay.
In a campaign. A bright flash of light, and then the players wake up in a lab wearing VR gears.
Ooh.
They have all of their abilities and spells that they had as their characters, but they are clothed as their players were. So the plot is that someone in the real world is trying to break into the gaming plane, and now the heroes have to protect the real world from the horrors of the D&D plane. The big bad evil guy in the real world is locked out of the gaming plane, but is in cahoots with the big bad guy in the gaming plane to unravel the fabric of the real world. So the players look like themselves, but are the heroes inside of their bodies. I don't know how it could work, but if you like it, run with it. is what he sent us.
Okay, so let me see if I get this right. Your players have characters already. So your actual real life players, your IRL players, are sitting at the table with their characters they created.
Yep.
And in the game, you describe that, they're in some big fight with a boss, or they get into a sticky situation, and just as the climax of the scene is happening, you describe to them that, there's a bright flash of white and your eyes are like blinded for a second, and as you're coming to, you are pulling a device off of your face, and you're standing in some kind of crazy lab holding a strange device that was attached to your head, and
then you proceed to describe the players. You're like, okay, you look down and realize you're not wearing your chainmail anymore. Like if it was our campaign, Thello, you're not wearing your mithril plate anymore. You're not holding your halberd anymore. But you look down and you're wearing a black t-shirt with a turtle that has wheels on it, in it, and you're wearing, jeans that or you're wearing this material that it seems to be of cotton, but it's blue, and you're wearing, some fancy footwear that is made of leather. It looks like boots, but it's square at the toe, and basically just describe whatever the player that's sitting in front of you is actually wearing, and you just look at them and describe them because you're putting their actual body into the game. And then basically what it is, then they're basically playing D&D, but dressed, the setting is now them in the world that we all live in right now, and they're trying to stop someone in our world who is trying to tear the fabric apart between our world and the D&D world to merge them together into one.
Okay.
So that would bring, all these dragons and mythical creatures into our world, and we don't actually want that because that would wreak havoc and destruction.
I mean, speak for yourself, but whatever.
But see, you would be the great bad guy in this. And then
I probably would, because I would name them the Game Master, and I could see why they would want to do it. But my question is like, are your players like captured by this person, and that's why they're wearing the VR stuff? Are they playing a VR game, and then they find out that some bad guy is trying to, world swap the whole situation?
Yes.
And now they have to try and stop him?
Yes. Yeah, they were playing a VR version of D&D
just for fun
or whatever, and now they're, someone's trying to world swap.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. I think this could be fun. I don't think you could make it a surprise, though, because I think for them to play their characters like they know... Okay, so this is another point I was confused at. So is it your players realizing that they are not their actual D&D characters, or is it their D&D characters basically possessing the player's body? You know what I'm saying?
I think you can twist it. You can twist it either way.
So, like, is it Thello now in the body of some weird being that they don't know, or is it Trevor who is playing Thello in a VR game and has now been kicked out because someone's, taken over the server with a pentagram and is trying to rip it from the server and put it in real life?
I think from what he was talking about, it sounds like it's the characters almost possessing their bodies. Like it ripped this bright flash, ripped their consciousness and put it into the player's body. So, because he says...
Okay, so it's like a Freaky Friday situation with your D&D character.
Yeah, so it says, so the players look like themselves, but they are their heroes inside their bodies, is his words, yeah. So, just like kind of like imagine you're playing a video game, really and then that character in the video game comes through the game and takes over your body.
Master's Chief. I'm no longer Bruce, I am Master's Chief of the Halos.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm here to shoot 'em ups with my pointy gun.
Yep.
Wait, I don't have a pointy gun? Fuck, what do I use then?
Exactly.
I'm gonna punch him. Ouch, this hurts. Why don't I have my super armor? This game sucks.
Yeah. But, as like a barbarian, you'd still have your rage. As a sorcerer, you'd still have your spell list. You still have all of the abilities you have in your D&D game, just skinned now into our world.
For the real world.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you picture they're fully statted out and they're fully have their equipment?
No, they don't have their equipment.
Okay, so now I need to find a staff of 1,000 eyes for my sorcerer. Okay.
But...
So I'm wearing old 50s style pickup truck with a Christmas tree in the back, pajama pants, and a navy blue V-neck and black socks.
Yep.
Is how you would describe my character in the real world.
Correct.
But inside of me would be Sorcerer of the Blackfoot and the Staff of 1,000 Eyes.
Yes. I mean, you wouldn't have a staff.
I love how long that. No. That's his name. He's the Sorcerer Blackfoot of the Order of the Staff of 1,000 Eyes.
Oh, okay. Then yes.
Interesting.
And you would still have all of your sorcerer abilities, and you can still even cast in this world.
Okay. So I could see this being fun. So what it is it's basically like your party. So like, not talking about the timeline in which your IRL people went to this VR facility to play Dungeons and Dragons in VR. You would be talking about so like the players, basically like the backstory is they went to this big like warehouse thing that's been converted from a packing house into a giant VR farm, basically, where they have, hundreds of rooms, people playing Dungeons and Dragons in VR, or, being race car drivers in VR, or Call of Duty, or whatever it is.
I mean, you can
or the Halos, man, like I said.
You can even pull the VR part out, and just like, your characters wake up, you're all sitting around a table, there's dice in front of you, You can do it so many different ways.
Or what if you twist it even more and they wake up and they're standing in a public park and they have foam swords, but they don't realize that they're foam.
Oh, they were LARPing.
And yes, they were LARPing, and now they try and go and hack the police officer in half with their giant axe, and they just like thump them with a foam axe. I think this would be more funny for like a TV show to watch, but I think, what if you ran a parallel where basically you're bouncing back and forth between in the game and IRL in the game, and you're going from them LARPing, and then basically the real D&D version is their imagination of what's happening. So, you have your Goliath who's a Goliath barbarian, and he's standing in front of 3 orcs, and he has his axe out, and he's like, though the foes stand before me, they will soon be resting in the rubble. And then you cut back to the real version, and it's just some chubby kid who's running at them with a foam axe, and you have them, do the battle there, and then you go back and translate it into the D&D version, and I don't know. I just think that'd be really funny, but I think it'd be hard to do it. I think it'd be really fun to say, like, okay, you wake up, and to basically restrict kind of where they are and how much they have to know of the world, you'd say, like, okay, you're at a VR farm or a VR arcade or whatever it is. Or, yeah, you're at, like, a comic book store or something, and that way you can have some of the NPCs there do the heavy lifting of, well, how do they find out that, some evil bad guy is doing some wizard's ritual online to bring the D&D world into the actual world? I think it has to be a VR thing. I think it has to be a larger format to where he's trying to rip the data and turn it into physical manifestation.
Okay.
So I think and then that way you can have them leave that room and try and talk to someone or talk to an NPC or whatever. Like maybe the whole place is malfunctioning and everyone's been transported to a D&D world in their VR, but now people are starting to ask questions, and then you have the chance of, talking to some nerd there who's a hacker and is like, oh yeah, some guy's on the deep web and he's trying to do this ritual where he's summoning the circles of the 7 wizards and he's trying to rip the D&D game off the internet and turn it into actual real life. And, that way they can get that info dump without, trying to figure out how to hack a computer as a barbarian or as a wizard even.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you basically leave the heavy lifting for the NPCs, and then you have them do like the murder mystery whodunit thing, because they have to be in this building because these are the only servers that are big enough to basically do this task.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has the power grid for it or whatever it is. And then you basically have them, pull the fire alarm and lock down the facility, or pull push the silent alarm button underneath the register and have it lock down the building. So now the villain is inside the building with you, and now you have to figure out who it is, and then you can be possibly transported back to your actual D&D life, and then the people whose bodies you're inhabiting will be returned to normal.
Okay. Well, Kayla, as a player, do you think that sounds like that would be a fun campaign to play?
I feel like it'd be a great movie to watch.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really hard. I mean, it just depends on, like, how thoroughly has it been explained. Like, when you first read it, I was very confused and trying to, like, kind of, like, break it apart and figure out fully what it meant.
There was a lot of bullet points in that.
Yeah, and fully what it meant, and, like, kind of like, okay, is it the character that's going to this, and then, or is it you, and is it a weird, like, now you're in the game? Like, I didn't really know, but now after spending how many ever minutes we've talked about it and kind of dissecting it, it does sound really interesting. It does sound fun. It's just... It's
kind of like a reverse Ready Player One.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. It's like, instead of escaping to this internet world through VR and immersive technology, you're being ripped from your VR world and placed in a physical meat body and having to try and figure shit out that way.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to try and combine the two. So, like, you're walking through this facility and you still have your VR equipment. Well, you come to, the door to the basement that's locked or whatever, and, one of you guys rolls a perception check. Well, as the DM, if they roll high enough, you decide, well, as you're doing this perception check, you see that the light inside your VR goggles is ignited. What do you want to do? And so, I put on my VR goggles. Oh, well, you're actually standing at the entrance to a dungeon, and you can see that there's an inscription on this door, and it says, I was created in darkness, I live in the glowing red, and I die in the, the gray and white. What am I? And that's the password to open the door.
What are you, the power?
And then you answer that question, or you answer that riddle. It's charcoal, by the way. They're born in the dark, so it's black, right? And then they live in the red.
Yeah, see, like a little red light when you plug something in and the power is on.
Oh yeah, that too.
And if it's like VR kind of a thing, VR electronics.
Yeah, but then you die in the gray and white, which is ash.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, what I'm saying is, like, you can do kind of like a thing where you're bouncing back and forth from D&D into the real world, and kind of go back and forth that way, where it'll be kind of a fun, it's like one of those rides at Universal or something. It's like, put on your 3D glasses now, and then you can experience the world in 2 dimensions, or two. It's weird, but not 2-dimension, but like 2 different dimensions.
As long as the bees don't poke you in the back, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Bruce? But I think it would be fun to do that.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
As much as I love how deep we're diving into this, we do have a lot of other questions I want to get to.
Okay, go for it.
All right.
We'll bench this one and come back to it. I think it's a fun topic, though.
Okay. I thought it was a fun topic, too. That's why I started it. So, do you have another question from Kurt Francis? He wants to know...
Thank you, Kurt.
...what we think are spells that change how a DM runs their game. So the presence of a spell in your campaign that's going to change how you are running the game.
Okay.
Anything that comes to your mind. I have one.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
I'll have you start because I have a couple, but I want to pick the right one.
Okay. So first one that comes to my mind is the fly spell, or just having, maybe not even a spell, but having races in the game that have flying ability. That, to me, as a DM, changes how you have to set up encounters and set up a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Because if you set up this whole thing where they have to climb down this canyon and go into these tunnels and stuff to make it over, to make it to the other side and stuff. But, hey.
You have to prep a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I just fly across the canyon. Okay, well, there goes 4 days of work.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or hey, you're setting up this battle and it's all, a lot of ground stuff. And, well, I fly 60 feet up in the air and I just start, shooting arrows down at them. And they can't hit me because I'm in the air and they don't have ranged weapons. So
yeah, or you basically have to think like, well, now I have a whole nother dimension of travel I have to account for. So if I set up an ambush further down the road and they just fly straight up in the air and do a perception check, well, fuck, they already found it out.
Yeah,
and now they saw it far enough out where they're not going to have ranged weapons that are able to hit them. So now as a DM, you have to kind of think of scenarios in which you can get away with like fudging it a little, not fudging it a little bit, but like beefing your NPCs or your bad guys a little bit to where it balances out. You may up their dexterity or their stealth so that, even though they fly up and do that perception check, well, they rolled stealth high enough to where they're not going to be seen anyways, and it still happens as they go. Or, like your example of the canyon, well, they still have to go to the bottom of the canyon to get to the doorway, but now they spend time carrying each party member, floating downwards down this canyon to get them to that doorway. Well, maybe you can apply some kind of exhaustion because, you're not used to flying while carrying this weight, or your carrying capacity only says you can carry this much weight. So now it's a athletics check to hold on to them and not accidentally drop them and send them plummeting to their death. I think it just creates more work for you. I don't think it's like a no-go kind of thing, but I definitely do think it changes the way you have to think about your campaign.
Yeah. So definitely, like I said, this question was about no-goes. It's just spells that change how the DM runs their game. And I think that's definitely a spell or an ability that just changes how a DM has to run their game.
Can I tell you one from our campaign that throws me for a loop all the goddamn time?
Is it Mold Earth?
Yes. Mold Earth so many times has thwarted like days of work to set up scenarios, and it's like, well, fuck, he just molded Earth away from it, so god damn it. Or like, oh, I didn't expect them to dig a really deep hole and then shove a demon down it and then just lob attacks down the hole at it and just totally dust it in 2 rounds. Yeah,
that was a good one.
That spell is so useful. It's so useful. Another spell that can be kind of a not a pain in the ass, but like a game changer for sure, would be like Mage Hand. Mage Hand is a big one that it seems kind of innocuous, but there's a lot of versatility in Mage Hand, and if you have someone who uses it well...
We're talking to you, Chris.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole nother thing that you have to think about. Like, okay, I either need to make things really heavy or like really complex to where they can't just, I'm going to Mage Hand that out of his pocket, or I'm going to Mage the key off the wall and, get us out of this jail cell or whatever. And so that's another one that changes the way you have to think about certain scenes or scenarios or how you run certain stuff depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah.
I do believe that a lot of the times when you're doing that, though, you're kind of altering the gameplay, and you're altering it from giving them that kind of freedom to do whatever they want and help in the storytelling and influence the world around them, and tailoring it to make it harder for them. So I typically don't do a lot of stuff that'll hinder using specific spells, like, doing all those days of work, not considering the Mold Earth spell was a good way to, basically set the world up in a way where I mean, you guys are level 9. You're pretty much like Olympic athletes or like the elite of the gladiators or whatever, however you want to talk about it, or like, you guys are basically the young Justice League right now in our game.
Yeah.
So the world around you isn't going to be prepared for a fucking, earth mover to do that stuff, or the scenario isn't going to tailor it to hinder you specifically. So build the situation as you normally would, and then just deal with the outcome, whether it means you lose 2 to 3 days worth of planning and plotting and stat building and all the other stuff, then that's what it is, or if they go through and do it the mundane way, then you have all this extra content and stuff.
I like it. One question that came in from Thelcaris Crisis. Pretty sure I'm saying that right.
Okay.
Which, Bruce, this one's going to hit close to home for me. What are the pros and cons of multiclassing?
Ooh.
So
yeah, I think you got this one, Trev.
So I say this hits close to home because I decided to do this with my character in our huge campaign, and I multiclassed him. He was a paladin, and I thought...
Explain multiclassing real quick.
Oh, okay. So, for those that don't know, Kayla, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, because I have no idea what you're talking about. I guess 2 different classes, that's all I got.
Yeah, so basically, you played a rogue in one game, and you played a barbarian in another. What?
I played a dwarf.
That's a race.
Oh. See, I clearly don't even know the difference between a class and a race then.
So,
if you're Trevor, that is also a class.
Yes. So basically, it is taking a rogue, like, if you had, like, as a level 6 or whatever, we played as your rogue, Olympia. And instead of being a full 6 levels in rogue and having all those rogue abilities, at some point you decided to start learning another trade. So you started, practicing fighting, in your spare time. And then instead of just being a sneak thief, now you pick up 2 levels in fighter or barbarian. So now you're a level 4 rogue, level 2 fighter. So it gives you the ability to do more things because you're not specialized in this one path. You're diversified and have more options. And it can do a lot of cool things and give you a lot of really cool stat bumps. Like, for instance, if you're a fighter and you pick... was it champion, Bruce, as your...
depending on what you're talking about, yeah.
For critting with 19.
Oh, yeah, that's the champion feat, I believe, or champion, whatever it's called.
Path, right? Basically, it's a path.
Attribute. Yeah.
So if you take the champion path with fighter, the benefits of doing that is, I don't remember off the top of my head what they call it, because I have never played a fighter. Instead of, having to roll a nat 20 in order to get a critical hit bonus, this class crits at 19. So if you roll a 19 or a 20, you get the critical hit bonus. Or if you're a fighter or a barbarian or a sorcerer or whatever, and you dip into rogue, you get the initiative bonus from being a rogue. It gives a lot of cool stat bumps and gives you a broader kind of spectrum to work with in situations because you have different abilities from both classes that you can dip into and use. I decided to do this in our campaign with my paladin and dipped into sorcerer, and now it's a decision I regret because the way I play the character, I don't really use the spells very often, and the way our party works, a lot of times it kind of needs that paladin and the healing abilities and all that stuff. And I'm not really a high enough level paladin to be able to perform as well in those situations as I could have if I would have stuck just with being a paladin. And also, being a paladin class, you have bigger, stronger, more of a frontline DPS kind of a build. They usually get higher hit points than a sorcerer would. So when I dipped into sorcerer, now my max hit points is less than what it could have been if I would have stuck with paladin the whole way. And like I said, just dipping into some of those more cool paladin spells that I look and I see, that are, 2 levels ahead of me of where I am now as a paladin, but I have 2 levels in sorcerer. So if I would have stuck it out, I'd have those cool paladin spells that I want, but instead I have now a whole sorcerer's spell list that I can dip into, but often do not, because that's just not what our party needs most of the time.
Yeah, there's definite benefits, like like you had said, if you're a fighter and you dip rogue, well, now you get those bonus to stealth, you get sneak attack, you get extra damage dice for certain stuff, and now you can pick locks and all that. And then as with action surge and the rogue stuff like that, your damage goes way up. I think it's about balance. I think it's about, kind of knowing what things go together well. I don't think Paladin and Sorcerer is a bad combination. I think, like you said, it just doesn't fit right now for the campaign. Although I think if you really look into that and you kind of start to pursue some of those things, you might find a good balance in which, instead of, like, as a paladin, you're kind of responsible for tanking, which is taking a lot of damage, and healing. You can, help protect your players by, instead of healing them when they absolutely need, or when they, don't have a perfect hit point ratio, that, your version of protecting them instead of healing them is you just, cast a crazy ass spell on this bad guy and stop him from hurting them. It's a more aggressive stance. I heard another person who plays a healer some of the times who doesn't think they do it right is, as that healing class, as like a paladin, you do get a lot of really damaging spells. Like, you're able to do a lot of really cool shit, but you can also heal. So instead of healing someone as soon as they take damage, you wait until they're down and they fail at least one death save, and then once the ratio doesn't look great for them to succeed on those death saves, then you pop them back up using a healing spell, and then you just get right back in the fight. And I think with your sorcerer abilities, you can kind of help do some of those things. Man, I think it's about balance. I think it's about knowing what classes balance well with your base class. Yeah.
Agreed.
Does that answer that question?
I think so. I think we got that one pretty well nailed. So, Jeremy Green, he sent us a meme that he kind of wanted us to discuss. Now, I don't know if he saw this meme posted on our page, because we did post it, or if he also just happened to have ran across this meme and sent it to us as well, because he wants to hear us discuss it. I hope you saw this one. I have posted it to our page, Bruce. But this is from, is that Treasure Island?
That's Road to El Dorado.
Road to El Dorado. Okay. Kayla's the Disney nerd. All right, I am not. So from Road to El Dorado. What are the names?
I don't remember their names.
Okay, she doesn't know the names. The 2 main characters kind of sitting in front of the king, and they're like definitely trying to convince him, con him of something. It says 2 artificers explaining how they're making a fog machine to fill with holy water to make an area of permanent damage against the vampire lord. And then it's got the king with this like big like eyes and all shocked and like, what? And it says, the DM.
Hold on, I gotta see this. Hold on, I'm going to our Facebook page real quick.
Okay.
Oh, I see it here. Oh my god. The DM. The king has just wide eyes like, oh my god. I did not think of this.
Yes. So
that's hilarious.
Like I said, he just kind of sent the meme and wanted us to talk about it. So Kayla pulled it up. It's Tulio and Miguel are sitting there talking to the chief.
The caption reads, "The 2 artificers explaining how they're making a fog machine to fill with holy water to make an area of permanent damage against the vampire lord." And they're like, kind of like, have praying hands and convincing faces, like come on, like, listen. And then the king is sitting there, and the text below it says the DM, and the king is sitting there with wide eyes, like, oh fuck. It's a good one. That's a good meme. So what are we supposed to talk about with this?
So I guess the first thing is, would you as a DM let this happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No hesitation. If you can... So me and Nick go back and forth on this all the time because I love artificers. I just hate his rules about artificers because I mean, you know me. I love to, like, problem solve and MacGyver shit together and figure out ways in which I can make this work, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so when it comes to D&D world, I want to apply the same ideas and the same logic and, like, try and figure out a way to do all this crazy shit I try to do out here in the D&D world, but more fantastical.
Yeah.
And so the reason I hate his rules is because they make sense. And so he applies certain rules, roles to what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to make a fog machine to create a holy water, basically aura of fog to help damage this vampire lord or whatever it is, first off, I would say that that's not how fog machines work. And then I would say, you know, what you're thinking of.
What do you mean?
Fog machines take a kind of like glycerin or like, they literally call it fog juice in a fog machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just water. If you just superheat water like a fog machine does, you're just going to get steam. And the steam is going to, you know, puff out at first, but then it's going to settle. And then you're not going to have the effect that you want. So you need to figure out a way of combining this with some kind of liquid that's going to create that fog type substance. And then explain how you're going to get it and where you're going to get it and how you're going to get enough of it and how you're going to combine it with the fog and all that stuff. But for simplicity, I would have you roll like a wisdom or intelligence check to see if you can figure that out and see if you can get it to work or the right kind of mixture that you need to make the fog with the holy water, because in some kind of ratio you could probably add holy water to fog juice and then have it, you know, produce the desired effect. So there would be a roll there for the intelligence to understand that it's not just water in there. And then depending on what tools you have, you can use that for this part of like drawing the schematic for it, or like preparing the plans for it. And then you would have to roll another check using your tools and your proficiency to try and create this item. So it would either be strength if you're actually like forging this item, or if it's just something you're, you know, piecing together, then it would be dexterity. And then, you know, vice versa, if it's something you're putting together at all, whether it's after you forge the pieces or if it's just pieces of stuff you already have, then you have to do the dex check to get it together in the right way. And then with those rolls, depending on how well you did, that increases or decreases the margin for error on using this item. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I said a lot of words all at once. So basically, you have to have the knowledge to know how it works. Then you have to prepare the plans on how you're going to do it and what materials you're going to use in the process you're going to use. And then you have to roll to see if that process works. And then depending on all those rolls will depend on how well this thing works. So I would absolutely allow this to happen, but those rolls would change how well it happens, because I've done shit like this before in games. And, you know, like one of the things I wanted to create was something I called the crossed bow. Like it's a bow that crosses itself. So it's basically one bow that the arms of the bow split at the end and make it look like so the handle you're holding, on the top there's a Y shape,
Mm-hmm.
and on the bottom there's a Y shape.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have one string from the top right going down to the bottom left, and then one from the top left going down to the bottom right. So that in the center of where those bowstrings are strung, you have that section where you place the bow or the arrow. And this was my way of basically trying to increase damage on an arrow or increase range on an arrow. To later, I wanted to be able to enchant strings with certain effects, like, you know, the bowstring of lightning or the bowstring of fire, and then have two different magical strings that when I fired the arrow, it gave it both fire and lightning damage as it struck its target. Well, to do that, I fucked up 3 rolls and almost blew myself up. And those were all because I had the design in my head, and because I am a decent artist, I actually literally sketched out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And then, Nick applied a DC to the rolls in his head, and then using my intelligence, he based what the DC would be for those, and I just missed it with the rolls, but the next time I did it, I didn't have to roll at disadvantage on one of them, and it's slow progress sometimes, but if you have the right means to do it, like if you understand it well enough and you can describe that to your DM and your DM's very forgiving, then I think it's possible to do these kinds of things. Like, I actually love this kind of stuff, and I would actually lower the DC if it's creative or off the wall enough. Like this whole scenario is like totally the shit that I would give like inspiration for. Like, that is fucking brilliant. Now tell me how you're gonna do it, and you do also get an inspiration dice for this, because this is incredible and I hope it works, even though you're gonna kill my thing and I hate you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I love that kind of freedom, and I am willing to reward those who are
indulge it.
Yeah, I'm willing to indulge and reward those people who for thinking outside the box like that.
All right, Bruce. Well, I see Kayla fading pretty fast over here.
I gotta get to bed as well, so I will agree that it's time to wrap it up here.
Let's do some house cleaning real quick.
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, Kayla, here's the broom. Mop.
And now we'll do the housekeeping and get to the stuff that we need to say at the end of the podcast.
You should see the wife death glare I'm getting right now. Okay, so... No,
I could feel it from here. It was withering.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
I need to go clean the house now, and Brittany's not even awake.
Yeah. So, no. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Carter, for our intro. And thank you to all our listeners, the people that follow us on all of our social medias. If you don't follow us on our social medias, go give us a check out. Like I said, we've talked a little bit about our Facebook. We also have Instagram, Twitter. Those are all at SITDMS1. If you have a D&D question, topic, or just like this gentleman today that just sent us a meme he wanted us to discuss a little bit, anything you see that's cool, an idea you have, you want us to run around, you can hit us up on any of our social media. You can also email us at emailthedms@gmail.com.
Nice, nailed
it in one. I know, we always mess that one up. Don't ask me how, but we do.
Yeah.
You can call us. Not really, because we don't have a phone.
Don't call us.
Don't call us.
Please don't call us. I drive for a living for the first part, and I will not answer.
And also, how did you get my phone
Trevor
number, you
is...
creep? Yeah.
Yes.
So, but other than that, anything you want to add, Bruce, that I'm leaving out? I'm sure there's something.
You gonna thank me?
If you can share us to a friend...
No.
Well, I was going to get to you in a second. Jeez, chill. God, it's always about you. God.
God, Olympia.
Now back to me, the most important person. If you guys can, and if you think that someone in your friends group might like this podcast or might be interesting for them to hear, maybe it's your DM, maybe it's another player in your group who you're trying to help convince your DM to do something that you heard here, or whatever it be. If you guys can spread the word about us, we don't pay for advertising. We don't push too much stuff out there. All we ask is that, you spread a friendly word here and there. Your guys' word of mouth is our AOE, which is area of effect. We're low level casters over here. So if you can help us out, that'd be amazing. I know that some of you guys out there have been recommended to the podcast. I know that some of you have just stumbled upon us, or are friends, or are just people who happen to find us and enjoy it, and for you guys we thank you. And I guess that's about it. At the end of the podcast here, we do a fun thing where we give our quips or little sayings or whatever it be. And I think since Trevor started us out because he rolled the highest, you have to go first.
What happened to the demon when his girlfriend joined the Holy Order?
What?
He got fiend zoned.
Oh man, that was good. I liked it. Kayla, since you are our special guest, and once again, thank you, Kayla, so much for being on the podcast with us today. We really appreciate you. Your support does not go unnoticed, and like I said, we just are very thankful for you and appreciative that you're on this podcast with us.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so did you guys hear about the magic skillet?
No, tell me about it.
It's made of cast iron.
Oh, shut up.
Iron. Cast iron, Bruce.
Oh, okay, mine's going to be a little long, something I've never said before. And it goes like this. Did you guys hear about the druid artificer?
No?
He built this magical, fantastical, like, motorized vehicle using only wood. It's got a wooden frame and a wooden engine, wooden wheels, and a wooden gas tank. Did he ride it? No. Wouldn't start.
That's funny.
So, as always, sorry, and thank you for listening. Adventure onward, and I said that wrong.
Fare thee well, and adventure onward.
I have brought great shame to my family.
Spice.